Approval of agenda. Anybody have anything to add on the agenda? Anybody care to?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Okay. Conflict of interest declaration. Anybody have any conflicts? No, haven't heard none. We'll move on to number 3, the presentations. Age-friendly Communautés d'amis des Aînées. C'est M. Paul d'Entremont.
Le groupement des aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse. RANE.
Alors, bonsoir, Monsieur le Préfet, Madame la conseillère et Messieurs les conseillers. Combien de temps?
C'est généralement 10 minutes avec des questions.
Okay.
Usually 10 minutes with questions included, not included in the 10 minutes.
Alors, je pense que tous me connaissent. Paul d'Entremont, je suis ici comme en tant que président du comité Amis des aînés, du comité des aînés de la région d'Argyll, avec le regroupement des aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Okay? Vous avez peut-être entendu, c'est une association provinciale pour les aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse, et ça, c'est les 50 ans et plus. Okay? On n'a qu'un point à l'âge de 50 ans de se faire appeler des aînés, ma vie est rendue là. Alors, en même temps, si vous permettez de vous présenter qui sont avec moi ce soir, la présidente du comité, Jean d'Entremont, du comité d'Argyll, des aînés, Carolyn et Gerald Babin, eux autres représentent le club des aînés de Saint-Anne-de-Ruisseau. Raymond Alain est membre at large de la région. Raymond Alain, je dis encore ça. C'est comme ça que je l'ai connu. Raymond Doucet est membre at large. Et Peter Boudreau, de la communauté Wedgeport, il est au comité, un employé du comité pour un projet. Alors que les clubs qui sont dans le regroupement des aînés d'Argyll, il y a les deux de Pubnico, Est et Ouest. Il y a Quinnen, Saint-Anne-de-Ruisseau, je crois que ça s'appelait Indian Sluice et Wedgeport. Alors, ils sont tous invités, mais ils ne pourront pas venir ce soir. Alors, ce qu'on va vous présenter ce soir, c'est le projet vert des communautés amies des aînés. Okay? Et vous avez tous reçu le document. Alors, on ne va pas lire tout ce qu'il y a là, parce que 10 minutes, ça prendra plus que ça. Alors, quand même, une définition. Une communauté amie des aînés, c'est une communauté dont les aînés participent à la vitalité de leur communauté. Comme la Saguindi, là, ils sont membres à part entière. Okay? Ils appartiennent à la communauté, ils sont respectés dans la communauté et ils contribuent. Ainsi, c'est une communauté qui voit aux besoins physiologiques et psychologiques de la population. Et ça veut dire, tout le monde dit, the well-being de tout ce monde-là. Ainsi, ça veut dire vieillir en restant actif. Un processus qui consiste à optimiser les possibilités de bonne santé, de participation et de sécurité. Et on voit dans la municipalité, messieurs, que vous avez déjà de belles initiatives avec le projet Sécurité des aînés, Vie active, et toutes les initiatives que vous avez là, qui font vraiment partie de ça, de la communauté amie des aînés. Alors, dans une communauté amie des aînés, les personnes aînées font partie de tout ce qui se passe, soit directement ou indirectement, en étant des citoyens, et ils font partie à ce que la municipalité, dans ce cas ici, parce qu'on parle de municipalité ou d'une région, peut leur offrir afin qu'ils soient plus actifs et qu'ils restent en bonne santé physique et mentale, spirituelle et tout. Okay? Parce que les aînés, il ne faut pas oublier, sont des personnes qui ont une grande capacité d'expérience et de vécu, et qu'ils ont à contribuer. Ils peuvent contribuer dans différents domaines de la vie de la communauté, ainsi de suite. Alors, d'où vient le concept de communauté amie des aînés? Il faut retourner en 2005 avec l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, lors de sa conférence internationale à Rio de Janeiro, qui avait appris le concept, qui a accepté et adopté et développé le concept de ville amie des aînés. Après ça, les pays qui étaient intéressés se sont en allés, puis ont adapté ça à leur région. Mais ce qui est intéressant de voir, parce que pour une ville, et vous allez voir plus tard dans le document qu'on parle de communauté, alors il y a des choses qui sont différentes que ce qu'on voit d'une ville comme Halifax, Montréal, Toronto, peu importe. Alors, on parle pour faire des communautés amies des aînés, des concepts qu'il faut garder, ce qui est important de voir, c'est les espaces extérieurs, les bâtiments. Okay? Comme par exemple ici, l'édifice, c'est un édifice Amis des aînés ou bien Amis des handicapés. Okay? Point facile de rentrer. Okay? Même conseiller Leblanc, il a besoin d'avoir d'aide pour rentrer au petit. Okay? Alors, c'est un exemple. Nos églises, nos salles communautaires, les clubs, les salles de pompiers, tout ça. Le logement. Okay? Nous autres, c'est pas un grand. Dans la région d'Argyle, vous avez vu dans les statistiques qu'on est chanceux, que la grande majorité de nos personnes, nos aînés, vivent encore dans leur maison. Okay? Il n'y a pas un grand bloc appartement et ainsi de suite. Et les gens vivent assez indépendants jusqu'à temps qu'ils ne peuvent plus. Et il faut qu'il y ait dans des foyers, ainsi de suite. Le transport, et je crois que vous êtes avec la municipalité, a fait un sondage sur le transport dans les derniers mois. Okay? La participation sociale. Alors, on parle que ce sont des clubs que ces personnes-là. Vous autres, vous appartenez à différents clubs ici et là. Alors, une participation sociale, c'est important dans la vie. Le respect et l'inclusion sociale. Que tout le monde fasse partie de cette même communauté, sans discrimination. La participation citoyenne et à l'emploi, même si on est rendu à un certain âge, ça ne veut pas dire qu'il faut arrêter de travailler. Autrefois, arrive à un certain âge, il faut l'arrêter. Aujourd'hui, c'est contre la loi de dire qu'il faut que tu arrêtes de travailler. Alors que les gens qui peuvent travailler veulent continuer, ainsi de suite. Et puis ensuite, la communication. Comment est-ce qu'on communique avec ces personnes? Alors ça, c'était les 8 concepts et le soutien, en passant. Le soutien, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour aider à ces personnes-là. Alors, à partir de 2005, ensuite, ils ont développé un guide. Puis, arrivé au Canada, en 2008, le Canada, c'est un grand pays. Majorité territoire, c'est des milieux ruraux. Il y a des grandes villes. Mais la majorité de la population, encore, vit dans des régions rurales. Ils ne sont pas tous rendus à Fort McMurray. Il y en a encore dans les régions rurales. Et c'est la survie des régions rurales. Alors, ça a été, le Canada appelait ça les collectivités rurales et éloignées, amis des aînés. Et prenons par exemple, nous autres, dans la région d'Argyle, si on pense à Halifax, au-delà maintenant de 40% de la population, nous autres, on est 3h30. Après, quel beau tu passes, là? 3h, 3h30 de Halifax. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire? Alors, ça ne veut pas dire qu'il faut tous déménager à Halifax. Okay? Alors, au niveau du Canada, le Canada a dit on ne va pas parler de villes uniquement, on va parler de milieux ruraux et éloignés. En Nouvelle-Écosse, puis en prenant quand même les mêmes concepts que l'Organisation mondiale de la santé avait pris. En Nouvelle-Écosse, le projet des aînés existe ou a été pris en parrain par 2 groupes. Il y a le Senior Secretariat, ou bien le ministère des aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse, avec son projet Age-Friendly Communities. Et je crois que la municipalité d'Argyle, en partenariat avec Yarmouth, a fait une étude l'année passée, 2 ans passés. Vous aviez eu 5 000 pièces pour faire une étude sur les besoins. On en a entendu parler, mais pas beaucoup. Okay? Je pense que c'était Diane Crowell qui va être embauchée pour faire ça. Okay. Oui. Alors, c'est pas ce que... On n'a pas entendu parler beaucoup. Tandis que dans la Nouvelle-Écosse, il y a des communautés, des petites villes, surtout rurales, des petites villes comme Chester, c'est une petite ville. C'est pas loin d'Halifax, mais c'est en même temps à la sortie d'Halifax. Et d'autres endroits qui sont dans le projet. Puis les aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse, le recrutement des aînés de la Nouvelle-Écosse a adopté le projet aussi pour les communautés. Puis là, naturellement, c'est les communautés rurales. On parle d'Argyle, de Clare, de Chéticamp, de l'île-Madame, de la vallée, de la Rive-Sud, peu importe où. Okay? Alors, rural. Mais en même temps, la Nouvelle-Écosse, on dit les 8 concepts qui étaient là, les 8 thèmes, est-ce qu'ils s'appliquent à une communauté telle que la nôtre, ou telle que Chéticamp, ou telle que la Baie-Sainte-Marie? Alors, après du travail, des études, ils ont décidé, le regroupement des aînés, de faire une version acadienne et francophone pour les communautés acadiennes et francophones de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Et votre préfet et Peggy Boudreau, employée aux sécurités des aînés, va participer avec plusieurs de ces personnes ici l'année passée, presque un an passé, à un forum provincial. C'est qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, qu'est-ce que c'est, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire et comment faire avancer. Puis vous voyez dans votre document que la Nouvelle-Écosse, le regroupement des aînés, les 8 thèmes qu'ils ont choisis sont semblables à ceux qu'on a vus avec l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, mais un peu différents. Alors que vous les voyez dans page 2 de votre document, c'est les services puis les soins de santé. Okay? Les services de soins et de santé. Deuxièmement, le logement puis les infrastructures d'accueil, ok, comme ça n'a pas changé là. L'environnement social et les loisirs. C'est pas, on n'a pas les mêmes facilités dans nos communautés, dans nos villages qu'on trouvera dans un grand milieu. Mais qu'est-ce qui peut être fait pour aider, soit des clubs, aider à des individus de ce sens-là? Le transport et le déplacement. Et alors, on verra, je pense. Est-ce que le rapport de l'étude sur le transport...
C'est la fin de mars quand c'est fini et une ébauche a été distribuée hier ou avant-hier.
C'est pas
Alors,
public encore?
Non,
Ok.
non, non, pas du non. Mais c'est les prochains 30 jours.
Alors que c'est une grande question, que tu sois à l'île des Surettes ou à Quinnan ou à Pubnico-Est, peu importe, le transport pour des personnes rendues, des personnes aînées. Là. Il y en a de nous autres, tout à coup, qui vont nous dire, vous êtes plus fit à driver.
On a vu des asters.
Ensuite, il y a l'environnement social et les loisirs, le transport et le déplacement, on a déjà dit, le revenu et le coût de la vie. On sait que ça coûte de plus cher en plus cher. Pas juste pour acheter du pain et du lait, ben, ça coûte de plus cher en plus cher. Et on va passer le message. On sait que dans peu de temps, vous allez commencer à regarder comment ça va nous coûter pour les taxes municipales pour l'année prochaine, des choses comme ça. Mais ça va tout augmenter le coût et des gens qui peuvent, dans la mesure du possible, rester dans leur maison et continuer à vivre. Ensuite, le numéro 5, la représentation puis la contribution des aînés. On a déjà parlé, c'est la même chose comme avec l'Organisation mondiale. C'est qu'est-ce que nous, les aînés, les personnes aînées, comment est-ce qu'on peut contribuer, puis travailler ensemble avec tous les âges pour ces communautés vivantes. Puis ensuite, l'information puis l'éducation. Alors qu'un de nos partenaires dans ceci, c'est l'Université Saint-Anne. Okay? Avec ses projets, les activités, c'est les écoles. Okay? On travaille maintenant à un projet, pas nécessairement ce groupe ici, mais à partir de ça, avec les écoles, sur les professions puis les métiers, pour donner des exemples. Alors, Argyle, ensuite, avec son comité, présidé par Jean et les représentants, certains qui sont là, ont voulu prendre ce dossier et puis le faire avancer dans la municipalité d'Argyle, le dossier de Communautés amies des aînés. Okay. Ils ont soumis un projet à Horizon, Nouveaux Horizons Canada, pour du travail de mise en œuvre, okay, parce que ça prend... De temps en temps, ça prend de l'argent pour faire des rencontres, pour payer des dépenses de ci et de ça. Mais c'est pas pour des... C'est un projet de 12 mois, c'est pas que vous avez soumis. Alors que la réponse est supposée d'arriver vers la fin mars. Okay? Alors, la réponse est attendue, vous voyez, vers la fin mars. C'est que ce qu'il s'agira de ce comité-là, après ça, ou de l'argent, s'il n'y a rien, ça permettra de faire le travail, d'approfondir ce qu'on dit ici, travailler avec le conseil municipal, travailler avec les différents départements, travailler avec la Gendarmerie royale du Canada, travailler avec tous les groupes qui font la vie active, et qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour faire une communauté amie des aînés, en touchant les 7 thèmes qui sont là. Alors, pour faire cela, ça veut dire former un comité, et en formant un comité, il faut que ce soit un comité composé de différents intervenants, y compris les représentants du gouvernement municipal, par exemple le préfet, les conseillers, les employés que vous avez en santé, sécurité, vie active, récréation, etc. Ensuite, ça comprend des représentants des différents clubs. Ça reprend des représentants, pas juste des clubs des aînés, mais ça peut être des lions, ça peut être des chevaliers colons, ça peut être des pompiers, différents groupes comme ça. Okay? Puis ensuite, tous ceux même du monde du domaine privé, les personnes âgées, des groupes qui s'occupent des aînés, des professionnels de la santé et ainsi de suite. Alors la demande ce soir, le comité n'est pas ici, moi au nom du comité, on n'est pas ici pour vous demander de l'argent. On est ici pour vous demander votre appui. Okay? Alors si vous voyez la page, le numéro 1, la page 3, alors demande d'appui, le comité des aînés d'Argyle invite la municipalité d'Argyle à s'engager dans cette initiative. Et on a même une lettre, vous proposez une lettre modèle que vous pourriez utiliser. Et deuxièmement, c'est que la municipalité du district d'Argyle soit représentée à ce comité d'action locale par 3 représentants que vous autres choisirez. On a nommé soit le préfet, des conseillers ou vos employés qui travaillent dans ce domaine-là. Et ainsi, la municipalité deviendra un des champions de ce projet-là. Et de ce qu'on comprend, au niveau de l'Acadie de la Nouvelle-Écosse et au niveau de anglophone, on avance bien dans la municipalité et peut-être rendu à une étape plus loin que plusieurs autres. On est parmi les premiers, les quelques premiers à faire cela. Voilà, c'est ça la présentation. Est-ce que vous avez des questions, des commentaires?
Avez-vous des questions pour M. Paul d'Entremont? Any questions for Paul d'Entremont? Conseiller Leblanc.
Surtout plus un commentaire. Personnellement, quand j'étais porte-à-porte, quand j'allais de mon élection, j'ai beaucoup entendu que souvent les aînés, peut-être les plus aînés des aînés, sont surtout mis placés à côté. Et je pense que cette initiative, c'est une très bonne idée pour la municipalité d'Argyle à s'engager pour démontrer notre gratitude envers les aînés. Je pense que ce sera une bonne initiative.
Et quand je entends le conseiller Leblanc, à une de nos dernières réunions, la représentante de Wedgeport, on parle quand on parle des certains âges de les loisirs, il m'a dit, moi j'aime de marcher, mais c'est pas fit de marcher sur le trottoir à Wedgeport. Il y a trop de chiens. Okay. Trop de chiens qui sont pas amarrés. Là, c'était une inquiétude pour elle. Okay. Elle et puis ses amis. Là.
Bonsoir, matin.
Conseiller Surette.
Les réunions, vous avez, c'est des réunions, la plupart, comme votre comité où ça inclut les New Horizons ou les clubs ou seulement comme un exécutif que vous rencontrez?
Comme Gérald et Caroline sont représentants du club de Saint-Anne-de-Ruisseau.
Les réunions là.
Ouais. Oui, ce sont leurs représentants. Alain et Jean Doucet représentent
l'Indian Sluice.
C'est tout le temps dit Tuscan Sluice, mais c'est Indian Sluice. Marilyn et Stillman. Quinnan. Pubnico Est, c'est Brenda Amiro. Et Pubnico Ouest, et en passant, elle est malade, elle va pas venir ce soir, c'est Rita, on connaît comme Rita Charlie Vigneault. Et Wedgeport, c'est Flossie.
Flossie.
Okay. Alors, eux autres sont nommés par leur groupe au comité régional.
Et ça se rencontre comme une fois par mois, une fois tous les 3 mois?
Selon les besoins, dis-moi.
Nous autres, on se rencontre selon les besoins. Maintenant, des fois c'est une fois par mois, des fois c'est une fois tous les semaines, des fois c'est une fois tous les 2 semaines, une fois par semaine. Ça dépend quand j'en aurai besoin. Mais avec ça, avec ce sous-comité ici qui va se former, que ça va prendre un peu de temps de se former. Probablement, on va avoir des réunions plus souvent et une garde, là, comme si qui allait manger. Mais c'est pas de quoi qui est venu au jour au lendemain. Et quand Paul a dit tantôt que j'étais en avant, je suis rendu plus loin de la province, surtout avec notre comité, communauté, amis des aînés, c'est nous autres qui faisons le plus loin, je suis rendu plus loin, et j'aimerais que ça reste de même. Pour une fois, Argyle, là, j'ai connu là, puis venons chercher nos idées, là, puis pour nous autres, c'est vraiment bien.
Ouais, ça me répond. Merci.
Le comité dont on parle ici, ça serait un comité de représentants de tous les clubs et représentants de la municipalité et les autres, ainsi de suite. C'est un plus grand comité. Mais celui-là sera plus structuré, rencontre une fois on dit là-dedans une fois par mois, des choses comme ça.
Merci.
Monsieur le préfet, avez-vous quelque chose à dire?
C'est bon d'attendre Lucien parler des plus vieux, je crois qu'il parle de moi. J'ai dit, j'étais un matin, c'est comme le gars dit un matin, j'ai un baseball mitt qui est plus vieux que lui.
Mais ça, c'est un exemple quand même de tous les âges.
Oui.
Le plus jeune des conseillers, quand il pointe moins par derrière, d'habitude, on est habitué de voir des têtes grises, là, au point de cheveux.
Yeah.
Pas d'année.
Oui, moi je crois que c'est une bonne idée. Ça mentionne ici le préfet est sur le comité, je n'aurai pas de problème avec ça non plus. J'aimerais être dessus. Si le conseil voit fit à m'impliquer.
OK. OK, ça que tu cherches, c'est l'appui de la municipalité.
C'est ça.
Quelqu'un qui veut proposer,
Moi, je fais. OK,
OK.
Danny.
Danny?
Propose. Oui,
Ok.
je propose.
Oui, c'est proposé et c'est commandé par Lucien Leblanc.
Proposer. Appui avec la lettre.
Oui,
Yeah.
C'est ça que je-
Yeah.
ça sera
Ça,
vous
que la
autres
motion.
à choisir. Moi, on aurait mis un modèle de lettre, là, mais c'est à
Yeah.
vous autres à prendre.
Oui, oui.
Yeah.
On a pensé que le greffier prend beaucoup de temps, mais on pensait qu'on ferait un modèle de lettre pour lui. là.
Ça aide beaucoup.
Ils avaient peur de la grammaire et je les blampoune.
On corrige pas la grammaire. quand même.
OK, c'est bien. Rien qu'une couple d'affaires pour le conseil, couple things for council. Le plan stratégique démontre de 2 ou 3 différents endroits la valeur la valeur. Un focus sur les aînés, quand ça va à la santé, recrutement des docteurs, ça c'est un objectif assez spécifique dans le plan. Aussi le Active Living Strategy, qui est sur notre site web. Et spécifiquement, on a 2 ou 3 buts qui sont très consistants avec les buts de l'organisation de la RANE, qui gardent à améliorer l'accès à des infrastructures et aussi pour promouvoir physical activity pour les aînés. Spécifiquement, le Active Living Coordinator et le département des loisirs, j'encouragerais fortement ce que le conseil veut pour prendre 1 ou 2 des personnes dans le loisir ou Active Living pour championner parce que eux, ça rentre fortement dans leur stratégie, alors ça s'aligne très bien avec la RANE. C'est rien pour encourager que si vous voulez, je pense que c'est une suggestion de la RANE et ça frappe directement dans la stratégie.
Une question, oui. Les réunions, ça se passe le jour ou?
Ça va dépendre de qui est là.
Oui.
Et normalement, on sait que, par exemple, les employés de la municipalité ou bien les employés qui seraient de d'autres endroits, ils aiment mieux, si c'est possible, se rencontrer le jour que le soir dans le cadre de leur travail.
Oui.
Ça
bien
sera,
sûr.
c'est quelque chose que le comité décidera une fois qu'ils sont ensemble.
Oui.
Okay. So I guess for the there is a motion on the floor, which is to endorse this group, the age-friendly group. It's been moved by Councillor Mew, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Okay, motion carried. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Merci bien vous autres.
Merci. Merci à vous tous.
Thank you, Peter.
Euh,
You're on.
Il y a un mot qui est mal écrit.
Oh, voilà.
Que vous faire pour...
J'aurais fait la même faute. J'aurais fait la même.
All right, we'll move on to number 4, business arising from the minutes. You have an attachment with 2 pages. That one is the noise bylaw, and I guess I know I found out today that our Public Works, John Sullivan's been working on it and still working on it, so that's ongoing. Okay.
Très proche, very
Yep,
close.
Very close, okay. And then we'll move on to 4A, which is 77 School Street property, request for decision. This is the property on School Street. It's an old building used by the Red Cross that the Red Cross doesn't need anymore. We've had it assessed, and it came up to, I think, what, $3,400 assessment. And it happens to be in my neighborhood. Today I took a little walk and talked to the owners of the business that's next door, and they have shown some interest. It's just a small parcel of land with a building, an old building, and anyway, they're interested. I think as you scroll through all this literature that we've got, it comes to the point where if it's not, I guess the value is not high enough that it's not like we're going to put it out for tender, and it would probably just be good for a business that's next door or a abutting, I guess, landowner. Is that correct, Councillor CEO Muse?
It's correct. I think what you'll find is the survey is attached, and I mean, it's not showing a lot of value on the survey, and there's reasons, because the lot is very small and very, very restricted in its use. Section 51A of the MGA allows the municipality to sell land that is of insufficient size or dimensions. All or part of the land may be sold to the owner of any lot abutting that land.
Yeah.
So this seems to fit very clearly in that definition. It is really your call, in council's eyes, but what you do have in front of you is an appraisal that would suggest very strongly that that's in fact the case. That without being attached to an abutting owner, it has limited value.
Yeah.
So I think it would be very easy for council to come to that conclusion and to approach the abutting owners directly.
Yeah. Councillor Surratt?
I'd like to move that motion that we accept the, recommendation of the CAO, and that council proceed with selling the property for the appraisal value of $3,400, and that abutting owners be contacted advising as such. So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
On that motion, just for council's information, we will be offering that property at that price. We may have a counter offer, and so at this point, because of the amount, I was respectfully asked that council allow the CAO to negotiate that price. I expect that would be okay by council. Judging by the amount is certainly within my ability to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make it noted here at the meeting that there's the potential that the price could be slightly different. And so we should have that discussion. We will have costs in order to sell, and I would factor that into any sort of discussion.
Okay, Councillor Muse.
So the cost, there's a cost to selling that with paperwork and whatever, so is that going to be our cost, or is that going to be the purchaser's cost?
That can be negotiated.
Negotiated with, and that would be part of your negotiation
Yes.
with that,
Yeah.
with the party, the interested party?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to 4B, which is the municipal boundary review. I think the last time we had this discussion, I felt like it wasn't as productive as it should have been. I think we should, try to really, talk this over civilly and, try to come up with some solutions. Okay? Keeping in mind that I think staff is looking for direction here on this one. There's all kinds of scenarios that we've been presented with. How do we proceed? Does council decide to go, to the public? Does council do it on their own? Is it a joint effort? These are all things that we have to take in consideration when we make our decisions. So, all right, we'll open this for discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I don't know that the council wants me to go into any sort of detail. You have had this document in advance. I will only briefly say that the additional information that you receive in this document compared to the other, all of the profiling data in terms of population trends are unchanged, but we have added additional information about the neighboring council and what the neighboring councils have in terms of numbers and councils.
Yeah.
So we did do the numbers for municipalities and towns and municipalities. So you'll note that there's a difference. The towns are generally representing less people. So we gave both pieces of information. And also, the last page is sometimes difficult. I know that we had some difficulty trying to explain it properly to ourselves as staff. So I want to just take a minute to explain. On the last page of the document, it outlines scenarios. And so what the scenarios that are listed, they start at 5 districts, they go to 6, 7, 8, and 9. Obviously 9 is what we have today. There's no reason why we stopped at 5 and why we didn't go to 10. We picked a relevant range that was certainly discussed in previous meetings. Obviously, if 9 districts remain, the average voters remain the same. There would be no districts impacted in any major way. You might have boundary changes here and there within the districts, but there would be no major impact on any of the districts. If council decided that it wanted to look into 8 councillors, 8 districts, then what happens is you divide the amount of population by a different number. So it increases the average voters as well as increases your relevant range. And what do I mean by relevant range? I mean that the URB has stated to us, while 10% variance, every council, every district, every councillor should represent in or around the same amount of people. That's the concept. And we saw that with the provincial MLA discussion, where we had protection with the Acadian boundaries. But what they said was, no, you no longer have that protection. You need to be within a minimum population base. This concept is similar. So what they're saying is that what the UARB says is, when you develop this, you must be equitable in terms of your representation numbers. But they do allow variances. And plus or minus 10% is generally not really considered a major variance at all. They will allow you to go 25% higher or lower in that particular district in terms of population. They'll allow that with some degree of satisfaction. Anything beyond 25%, you have to have a very good reason in order for the UARB to accept that kind of variance. What do I mean by that? I mean that if there were 8 districts and one of the districts had 500 voters in that district, that would be unacceptable to the UARB. You'd have to have a very good reason to do that. It needs to be at least 774 people, okay? So I recognize that this is kind of, it takes a little while to kind of absorb, but that's what the last page is trying to do. It's trying to show you as council that if you decide to go from 9 districts to 8 districts, there will be at least 2 districts impacted in terms of major impact. I mean, obviously you're deleting a district, so that has to have a major impact on at least one. The districts in the 7 district scenario, it's 4 districts that will be impacted. And if you go into 6 districts, it's virtually all 6 districts impacted. Then if you go to 5, all of the districts will be impacted in some significant way. So just to finish on this average voters calculation, in the 5 district scenario, the average amount of voters that each councillor would represent is 1,650. The low end would be 1,237, the high end being 2,063. So we stopped at 5 for no reason other than to stop at 5, but we did have a lot of discussion around 5 districts prior to this election. So I hope that clarifies that last page a little bit, because I know there was a lot of numbers there, and it's sometimes difficult to determine how those numbers were derived, and we basically just took the population and divided it by a new number, 8, 7, 6, or 5.
Okay, Councillor Surratt first.
Comment and a question. Somehow in the back of my mind, I was thinking of voters and not residents. And then when I saw your numbers that you did, it's residents. That's what, it's not just who can vote.
Eligible voters, isn't it?
It's residents. Am I right here?
Well, we will base our numbers on residents more than likely. However,
Okay.
what we don't have necessarily is detailed population information by the districts that are defined by the municipality of Argyll.
Right.
So we have community counts that will give us information about certain communities. Now, in your instance, I believe in District 4, is it correct, Chris? District 4
Yeah.
community counts was identical boundaries as your district. I think it was the only one.
Is that
So,
right?
so
Okay.
the only region that we had absolute, very accurate information on the community count was your own. The others, we did have counts, but it included different regions. So and in some cases, it excluded regions. So in Wedgeport and Pigneys Point, Cummel's Hill and Little River were not included. Where in the district, in our district, they are. So the numbers they are what they are. I mean, they will give you trends. What the senior planner, Gary Saunders, the late Gary Saunders, did in 2008 is he took the elected list, so the provincial list for the election of 2006, and on each district had an amount of eligible voters. He also had statistics from the last Stats Canada survey, census. So he took the allocation amongst the eligible voters
Yeah,
and multiplied that by the population for an estimate.
for an estimate, yeah.
And it is an estimate. It could be
Yeah.
off by 100,
Yeah.
150 people.
Yeah, max, I
And
imagine.
probably,
Yeah,
but I mean,
150,
in
yeah,
terms
right.
of, in terms of that district, that can be significant depending on where you are
Absolutely.
in the definition.
Absolutely.
So that's, I can recognize the question. And,
Yeah,
and
okay.
so we tried to pull 2011 population information based on electoral lists of
Yes, yeah.
2012.
Yeah.
However, there were 3 districts that did not have an election. So
right, so you
those
wouldn't know.
lists were probably not worked as well as the others.
Yeah.
They had a lot of inaccurate information when they came in. If there was no election, then that list did not get amended. So even that shows a certain level of,
I get you.
problems around some of the estimates.
Okay.
But we did what we could with the information we had in order to give you guys an idea, and girls, an
I'll just
idea of
finish one.
where we are at.
Go ahead.
That's very good, and I'm glad you explained that. I guess my mind was, I thought it was voters, but now you've explained that, that's good. The other thing was, because I don't understand it, is the 25%. Did I understand it's a 10% that the URB, is it 10%? That's usually what 10% would be the mark of differences in the voting, and you've got 25% minimum and 25 maximum. Why did you not go with 10%? If you said, if I understood it right, that URB at 25% either way is kind of iffy, but 10 is more acceptable. Why would you give us 25? And again, it's just my question.
It's basically to give you the absolute minimum
Worst
and the
scenario.
absolute maximum
Okay.
that you could have in each
Okay.
district.
Yeah,
The 10% obviously would fall within that range, right? It would be a lesser,
yeah. Should we work
threshold.
more, in your opinion? Should we work more around the 10%, or should we work around the 25? Or you don't know what the
that's
answer?
well, I guess it depends on what kind of changes you're looking
Okay.
at. And because once you look at the changes, then you're gonna start drawing boundaries that make sense. At that point, you may want
Yeah.
the 25% in order to
You're
accommodate.
darn right, I
everything
understand
else.
what you're saying.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would suggest that you work with the 25. Obviously, if you can get closer to
It's-
parity, to equality in each
Yeah.
district, that would be your goal.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing you should be measuring. There's also cultural, language, geography, and other factors at play.
This was well done, what you
This is
did
just
there.
simply from a population
Right,
standpoint.
yeah, very good. Thank you. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Muse.
I guess one of the questions was the same as, with the numbers. When I look at the numbers at over 8,000, it tells me that it must be population, because the voters that we have on the list is closer to 6,500. Okay, that's the voter count that we have. But that is why when I look at your page, your last page, and it says the average voters, this is based on 8,000, right? I think when you look,
I'll double check.
917
Yeah.
for 9 districts gives you 8,000.
Very
Yes,
good.
you're absolutely
Right.
right.
Got it.
Okay, and that was my question there, and of course
Yes.
that was answered.
Yes.
When you look at lowering the numbers of councillors I'm talking about. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to stay with the 25, like you said, or at least look at that, because other than that, what's going to happen, I feel, is that we're going to be dividing areas that shouldn't be divided. You know, like we're going to take groups of people that are going to be put somewheres that don't belong, that they belong more in somewhere else. Right now, when you look at 9 districts, we're very well distributed as far as numbers. Proportion. When you look, we're all within, and I think we're very close to 10%. Some might be a little more, but we're very, very close to 10% when you look at that. I know there has been I'm just talking about my own experience when I was campaigning. The requests were, about, aren't you going to reduce? It seems like a lot of the public want us to, and I shouldn't say a lot of the public. I'm not saying that even half of the people that I spoke to said that they wanted reduction. You had some. But I think we have to really, really look at that and make sure that if we do reduce, that we try at least to keep the communities of interest, the cultural, whatever, as close together as we can. And it's just something to look at. The lower we bring those numbers, the more that's going to happen. It's going to happen. I mean, you can't expect to have one councillor just because of geographical or the interest. You can't expect to have someone to have 50% more than what the average is just because you have to do that. And I think that's where we're going to have to really look at the numbers. What are we looking for, and make sure that it fits both in population and in cultural diversification or the area, so that we can keep people with the same interests together as much as we can. That's all I had to say.
All right, anybody else? Again, like I stated, I guess Warden d'Entremont.
Yeah, I know I didn't hear much about numbers. I'm not saying I didn't hear, but very few. I think most people don't realize what it represents. How much will it change their tax bill on a $100,000 home if you reduce one councillor? It's going to be what, 1 cent?
For one councillor?
Yeah, not even that, right?
It won't be a cent.
So 2 councillors would represent maybe 1.5 cents on the rate or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very close.
Yeah. So it's not like it's a huge expense. I don't think people realize, but in any case, whatever we do, I think we're probably going to have public consultation anyway. We're going to need public consultation, and so it's going to be interesting. Thank you.
Councillor Surratt first.
Just maybe to answer Danny's, or Councillor Muse, we've got 3 districts that are around the 25% right at the moment. Yes, we do. If you go at the maximum, one's got the maximum of 1,040, one with 1,032, and the others with 1,017, I believe. If you take 25%, there's a few districts that do fall within 21 or 22%.
Yeah, but that's not from the average, you mean?
Right now, at this
From
point.
the average?
Yes. Maybe I'm mistaken. From the average, yeah.
You're talking
I'm going to the
about
high
most.
to the low. Thank you, Councillor d'Entremont. Yes. The warden, I should say. Thank you for correcting me. I was wrong.
I think that's what you're
No,
talking about.
I was wrong. Thank you.
Councillor Muse.
Sorry.
Again, what the warden just said about what it's going to increase the taxes, I think that is something. I mean, we're not going to do this without public consultation. Number one, and I think that is something that is very important to make sure that the population knows that by reducing 2 councillors, this is what it's going to save you in your taxes. I mean, because this is what they look at. We're going to save $100,000, and our taxes can go down, and you know, it's an education. It's to make sure that we educate the people in that they're aware of what it means by having either 7, 9, 8, whatever, and that is something I think that we have to really make sure that we educate the people and we inform the people of what this means by having this many councillors compared to another one. You know, it just that when you said that, it reminded me, you know, that's what we got to make sure that we do.
Okay. Councillor LeBlanc.
Just a quick comment. I think you guys are all raising actually great points. I agree with everything everyone said so far, but I just thought I'd make a comment quickly. I'm probably currently the only councillor who's got experience as being councillor for 2 districts at once. As well as being a new councillor, obviously I didn't know exactly what the job entailed until I became councillor, and I feel like I can effectively represent, I'd like to think, maybe in Westport they're telling everyone I'm doing a terrible job, I don't know, but I'd like to think that I can effectively represent District 3. Obviously I'm not getting the calls from District 5 as a normal councillor would, but I don't find it's a major workload. The only issue I would have would be the committees that a councillor are required to be on, and I feel like personally I couldn't take on very much more, and if we cut down nearly half, there's going to be an extreme workload with filling up those positions for committees. So that would be my only issue, but as far as the workload elsewhere, I think it's very doable, and a penny saved is a penny saved, but as well, if it is just a penny, I feel like my district would like to have fair representation instead of a councillor running around in 4 different villages composing one district.
Okay. Councillor Surratt again.
I agree with Councillor LeBlanc. That's a very good point that you've made there. You know, I guess I do agree with that on some points. When I look at it at, you know, 19,500 for a councillor, the mileage that you might rack up in the year, your UNSM, your FCM, you know, if there's 2 councillors, let's say it was 2, let's say it's 4, that can add up to quite a bit of money, you know, in savings that can be put. It doesn't mean that it would go totally go to save the tax base per household, but it could be put, you know, in this. I guess municipality is somebody working on, whether it be this for the seniors, it'd be working on some initiatives we have to get some people to work on this stuff. There's money that we could focus that money there. And I think that when you look at, I guess, districts around us, how many councillors there are, I do believe that I can take more people on. I take care of 4 villages, and maybe what you said, Councillor LeBlanc, about taking more villages. Well, I got 4 villages, but my population is less per village than your Westport, than your area. But I've got 4 villages, and it's not a huge issue, but the population is not as much as some. But I could take on, you know, no problem. But I agree with you, the committees is where I'm almost maxed out. It's not the actual councillor's work, it's the committee work that I find that takes a lot, and that has to be taken into consideration along with what Councillor Muse said about the distinct geographic, you know, and the linguistic thing has to be looked at too. The number, I don't know what it is. Thank you.
All right. Again, like I started, staff is still looking for direction. We've had some good discussion here.
2 missing here tonight too.
Yeah, that's right. We also have 2 missing. But, you know, does anybody have anything else to discuss? CAO Muse, do you have any comments?
I guess the starting point might be, I know the council has debated the idea around an independent committee. And I think, if I recall correctly, there was pros and cons, obviously, we were discussing. And one of the pros is that it's independent group from this group. But the con is that, and I think this was discussed at length at the time, is that if it's completely independent, there's no input from the councillor in terms of what kind of work that is being done by the council. So there are perhaps assumptions made on the part of a completely independent council that may not be in fact correct. So I think that was, if I recall the discussion, that was the roundabout way we got to. Regardless of what you do, you will have public input. You could have it only at the end, or you could have it, you could have it at the beginning in order to establish what you think the amount of councillors ought to be. So, I mean, you have the option of saying, okay, we'll set up some meetings in Pubnico, Wedgeport, Tusket, wherever, and talk about how many councillors ought to represent the municipality. You'll get input. But then you'll also have the opportunity for council to provide input, and a chair to provide information to the residents in terms of what they, some of the facts around what a councillor does on a day-to-day basis. From our perspective, from staff's perspective, if you were to give us direction to set that up, we would certainly do that. The other option you might have is to ask staff to determine what some of these districts might look like under different numbered scenarios. And I might encourage you to do that. I'm not certain what the order might be, but I'm thinking the order around scenarios might be the first order of council. And the reason why I say that is that if you're going into the communities and you're doing a town hall meeting, you then have that information. So you then say, okay, well, if you have 8 or 7 councillors that you're considering, or 6, whatever the number is, this is what the boundaries might look like in order to fit the population. It gives information to the resident to make an effective decision in terms of where these boundaries ought to be, and they'll give you advice, good or, they'll give you constructive or destructive criticism around these scenarios. If you had the scenarios, then you could bring those to the public, or you could just bring a blank slate and say, look, we're looking at a number, understand that the ramifications of a different number are as follows. That option leaves it all in their hands to decide. So, which is good, but doesn't give them a lot of information to base a conclusion on.
We just start, yeah.
If you give them scenarios, well, you might be accused of perhaps building the road on their behalf. Well, in some ways, you're the leaders and you were elected. So in some ways, that's not untrue. So really, that's where, as staff, we can help you, create certain scenarios of maps, and we can work with council to try to develop 2 or 3 options per 2 or 3 scenarios, just to see what it might look like and what populations might work. So that's what I have to offer from the staff's perspective. I'm sure there are questions.
Okay, Councillor LeBlanc.
I think we'd all like to see the easiest way of doing this, but I don't think there is an easy way, obviously. I think most options have to be looked at. I don't think you can really overlook anything. I'm just curious, Mr. CEO, if do we have the ability here in the building, does staff have the ability to portray geographical as well as population statistics of what it would look like for 5 districts, 6 districts, 7 districts, 8?
Yes, we do have that capacity. Taylor Harris can probably generate those maps. If not, then the District Planning Commission could certainly do so. We would use some of the numbers that are here. And so some of the lines might be a little gray, that the population may not, obviously is not an exact science, but yeah, we do have
Well,
that.
if we do have the ability, it doesn't sound like a very costly venture. Not that it exactly matters. It seems like we have no other choice than look at all the options. Whether you look at it one way or the other, it's got to be looked at from every angle, I think, even though it could be time consuming. The only question is, once we have that information, who analyzes it? I know we can take a look at it, but myself, I'm not an expert on electoral boundaries. I'd like to keep my community's best interest focus my community's best interest, but even myself, that's kind of a tough thing to look at. I don't exactly know what would be best for my community. So my question, I guess, to the rest of the council is, if we do make such a study that it seems like that's the way we're going, who do we get to look at it once we're done?
Councillor Muse.
I would say, based on what you just said there, is when you bring it out to the public, then they can look at it to see how it affects them. Now you're going to get probably different responses from different areas, because some are going to be affected in a way that they don't like, and others are going to get affected that it doesn't matter to them. You know, that's great for us, but it's not as great for them. So I can see what you're saying there, but I think we as councillors, I think we should look at it though and see what we feel makes sense. And when I press this, I had a question. Don't you already have the scenarios for a 5 and a 4 and a 6 and a what have you got? Well, what did you bring up before the last election?
Just 5.
We had 5 and 9. Obviously, we have 9.
Just 5.
So we would develop
sorry,
8, 7, and 6.
Okay,
If these numbers make sense to council,
Yes.
that's what we
No,
would.
I thought you had more than that scenario, that you had different scenarios, and then you were looking at 5. All you had was 5. Okay, I wasn't aware. But I would say that we go in that direction. At least that we have something to look at, and maybe we can kind of pinpoint areas that maybe this doesn't make sense, you know, or it makes sense. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Surratt again.
I guess a comment and then maybe a couple of other things. I guess if you went out there in the public and asked the question, you know, how many councillors should the municipality of Argyle have? I'm sure, 95% sure, most people say, oh, cut it down. That's the first, probably one of the answers you'd probably get from a lot of people, just, oh yeah, whatever, cut it down. There's too many. That would be a scenario, and not necessarily they're right, but I think that's the attitude or the idea out there, you know, it's costing too much money. But anyhow, that's just a comment I've got. The other thing I'd like to add on is for the boundaries, I would like the scenarios to come to this council so the councillors could look at it. I don't think we'll ever come under a consensus all ourselves with the boundary that you may come up with. Doesn't matter, but I honestly do believe it should come to the council, and I would certainly either like to make a motion or give direction to the CAO to see that staff bring a scenario of 6, 7, and 8, like Councillor Muse said, and I think that's would be a way to go for. And it doesn't have to be for the next meeting. We have plenty of time, but at least we're working towards our goal. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Book.
So that's a motion, actually a motion on the floor?
Did you make a motion?
No, I just said I would just suggest.
Okay, thank you.
Would you need a motion? Would you rather have a motion?
Sure,
Sure.
if that's
I
what,
would like to make that a motion. That we direct staff to give us scenarios 6, 7, and 8, since we have 5 and 9 already in boundaries.
Motion on the floor.
Second.
Seconded. Okay. Discussion. Councillor Book, you had your light on.
Yeah, well, I guess I like to see more scenarios for different scenarios. My district only can go one way, can't go the other way. I'm the tail end, and I have asked people what they thought of cutting down councillors, and they said whatever. It wasn't an issue, and I'm sure there's probably some out there that probably would probably like to see the council downsize, but it didn't seem to be a big issue. And I don't know, I guess I like to see more scenarios, and you've already mentioned that, so that's all I want to say.
Okay. All right. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Okay, carried.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to number 5, financial report, and that would be CEO LMUs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are still showing a surplus, currently January 31st at the, I guess it would be at the 11th month period. I see now it says 10 month, but it's 11 month. Oh, no, wait a minute.
No, it is.
It is the 10th month. Look at that. I can't, accountants, you know, there's 3 types of people, those who can count and those who can't. So,
It's just dollar signs that you see, that's what
that's it. That's,
Months, there's no
That's
dollar
it.
signs with months.
So some of the major positive variances, and by positive variance, I mean that we're ahead in terms of revenue than we expected. Some of them are, well, deed transfer tax, we're still ahead by about, but the deed transfer tax is slowing in terms of revenue stream, so it is, yes, we're ahead, and we will be ahead for the end of the year, but not perhaps as high as we anticipated earlier in the year. Return on investments and other extraordinary revenue. I'll speak quickly on extraordinary revenue. Most of the time when you see extraordinary revenue, it's revenue generated by our own sources or through grants. So that, when we see that amount showing a positive variance, it typically means that we have successfully negotiated a grant that we did not anticipate at the beginning of the year. In terms of expenditures, I think for the most part, we have variances, well, we certainly have variances in every major, positive variances in every major area of expenditure. General government services being, I guess, the administrative arm is showing a fairly decent positive variance there. The reasons are varied. There are many reasons why. In each element, there are many reasons why we're a little ahead of the game, perhaps a little frugal in some places, perhaps things didn't occur as anticipated in others. Protective services, we're seeing some savings in property inspection, as well as dog control. We're seeing some positive variances there. By positive variance, again, I'm meaning that our expenditures are not as high as we anticipated for this period of time. So obviously we do have another couple of months to go. Then some of these numbers can change, but these are positive signs. Transportation services, we are ahead as well, slightly in there are a couple of reasons. One is airport budget is slightly lower than I anticipated, the actuals lower than anticipated, and some special projects around transportation are lower. Public transportation feasibility study being an example, slightly lower than what we expected. Environmental health services, garbage collection and disposal is I guess the leading area of savings. We typically take very conservative estimates in terms of garbage collection, landfill fees and costs. Those are all based on tonnage and use. When we see we have always seen a positive variance here. We've always estimated on the higher level to be sure that our budget is that the tax revenue we bring in is sufficient to pay for that. Garbage collection and disposal at this point is $481,000, where we anticipated it to be $508,000 at this time of year. One of the factors in that is, of course, lower tipping fees. Lower tipping fees means we have less garbage. Less recyclables, less composting. That is a sign perhaps of also a population decrease as well. So not saying that that's the only factor, but we see in economic times, when the times are good, this number rises because there's more consumables, people are buying more things, and with consumables there's more waste.
Right.
So it is a sign of the economy. That number will decrease in expense when the economy isn't as strong. There is and I've mentioned this many times, unsightly and dangerous premises is showing a negative variance. We are also showing a positive variance in the revenue because we had a couple of cleanups that we billed to the taxpayer. I can say to you today that we had our tax sale and neither of those properties were bid on. So the likelihood of that, the collection on that is now under scrutiny. So where we've recorded it as a revenue, we hoped that we would collect it on the bid. hoped, but we're not that hopeful. So those two properties we did not collect, so we will have to collect in other means. There are other means of collection. But that's just to say that where we had showed it both as a revenue as an expense, I expect that revenue to be reduced to reflect that. Environmental development, a lot of savings in different areas. Couple of areas of note would be in the planning and zoning. There's less gas tax spent than we anticipated on the climate change project. And community development and housing RDA, the absence of an RDA has certainly reduced that number. We did expect some costs to come through, perhaps with the thought of another RDA being created, but we know now that that won't happen this year, so some of those expenses won't occur this year. Tourism is showing a negative variance only because we had an offsetting revenue source for the project travel to Île-de-Madeleine. So it's showing like we spent more, but we actually have a $5,000 surplus on that project, and actually is on the agenda for discussion. Recreation and cultural is showing a major variance, major positive variance, mostly due to vacancies in positions. The active living coordinator and the heritage development officer were not filled at the time that it was expected. And so for that, especially in the recreation side, not filling that position also meant that certain programs that we thought would occur earlier did not occur. So that also impacted on the variance. So otherwise, that leaves us with a surplus. The surplus is showing $310,000. It will not be that at the end of the year. There will be expenses that will come in to reduce that amount as it's done typically. But the amount of the surplus suggests very strongly that we will end in surplus. And what I would also suggest is there's a couple of decisions that council will have to make in terms of trails funding. These figures do not include your commitment to trails funding because you have not dispersed that amount. So what I would suggest is that we either transfer that money to pay for that commitment for the trails improvement, or it gets dispersed or recorded in this fiscal year. So whether we transfer it or we actually disperse it to the organization that's going to do the work, I would suggest that with the surplus we have here, that's one of the areas that I would focus, because you've already made that commitment to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Councillor Surratt.
Yes, you might have answered the last time we had our financials. Laurie's in the expenses, environmental health services, Laurie's Pubnico and Middle East water utility in the expense side. It does come in the revenue side, if it was my understanding. Where would it be in the revenue side? I was looking at the revenue side and trying to figure out where it would be in there. There's about 7,000 or 8,000, because it's not an expense. It was just, we were doing in-kind services to the utility. It was paying itself, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
I'm looking at at where the revenue source would be. I believe it's under area rates, under special assessment. So under revenues special assessment, I believe that's where the revenue is being recorded. What's happening with East Pubnico is we're billing for the water use. So we are collecting revenue.
Assessment, I see it.
And so it's actually in that number. The detailed version of this statement will show you exactly that
That's
amount.
fine.
And we are ahead. We have collected more than we've expended, absolutely.
Yep.
But it's not our money.
No.
It is actually for the benefit of the East Pubnico Water Utility.
That's right.
And so at the end of the year, that money will certainly be earmarked for them. So included in that surplus is a surplus for the East Pubnico Water Utility
Right.
that really should be earmarked for them. We have earmarked West Pubnico and Tuscot Sewer, but we haven't shown East Pubnico
Right.
as of yet.
Yeah.
I'm
Should
glad
be
you
there.
raised that point, because it should be reflected.
Thank you. That's all I
And
have.
we are certainly ahead of the game expense-wise, but we do have some expenses that have occurred in February regarding a fairly fairly substantial repair.
So do we have the money for that? Are we using the money from the government? Is that
We have not utilized the money that we received from the government as of yet.
no?
No. That's for major capital. So
Yes, right.
they had a leak in the water line
Well,
and
yeah.
it was repaired.
Yeah.
I called it major repair. I maybe should have called it minor repair compared to what other things could happen.
Yes, right.
Okay, any other questions for CAO Muse?
I move we accept the report.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to 6, other business and for decision. 6A, road name request, attachment, 1 page. This is to do with the name change we had last year, was it? For the Tittle Road, chemin de Belle-Île, and coming back to Tittle Road. A little bit confusing, but maybe somebody can take over this one. Councillor Surratt?
If the CAO doesn't mind, or would you rather? No, I'll speak to it. When, it's a little confusing, but I guess living in that road, I guess I should know what happened. When the petition was passed, the request was being made to change it to the chemin de Belle-Île. Well, lo and behold, when the sign was put up, a lot of residents on that road were under the understanding when they signed the petition that it would have chemin de Belle-Île and Tittle Road underneath. This is what they understood. Two names. On the petition that they signed, there was one name. There was one name there. Why didn't they see it? And I'm not arguing the point. It's just some people just had that impression. I guess from the people I've talked to, and I talked to most of them, in fact, it did become a hot potato issue. And I guess they just signed it. They thought it was good, and they believed that the petition, was okay, and they just didn't read it all. They just signed. So once they saw that, they said, this is not what we thought we were signing for. So there's a group that started another petition, and they passed it, brought it in fact, they gave it to me, and I brought it to the Public Works. And after they did their work, it's come out that over 51% voted for the chemin de Tittle Road, which we are asking for council to approve for the final time. I'm hoping that TIR has the old sign. Anyhow, I'm red as a beet, but anyhow, that's the story.
Thank you, Councillor Surratt. Any other comments? CAO Muse.
Quickly, what we did was when we received the second petition, that came to my attention. And I said, well, I guess there's the danger that the second petition may not have been understood like the first petition wasn't necessarily understood. And I recognize some people were very polarized on this issue. Some people really wanted this name and some people really wanted that name. So what I asked the Public Works Department to do is send a letter to all residents and say, these are the two names that were presented to us for petition. Please select the one that suits you the best. And the vote was close, but it is the majority that came up with the chemin Tittle Road. So that's how Public Works dealt with it. The other piece on the two names, and I'll say this for the benefit of the camera, is that the Department of Transportation will not accept two names of that nature because for emergency purposes, there's a lot of reasons, but emergency makes sense, right? Which road you live on? Well, Belle-Île, chemin Tittle, and they're looking for two roads. They have one official name for the road. They do have bilingual policy, so they do allow bilingual signs, but they won't allow you to have the English, the full English and the full French. Like I think of Ditcher Road, the original name was Chemin d'Ica. So you couldn't have Chemin d'Ica Ditcher Road because it's two different names.
Yeah.
So it's one, and most people, what they decided to do was add CH to their names. So Chemin Tittle Road. And so this is what is the case here.
Warden D'Entremont.
Yeah, so, again, it's again by policy greater than 51%. How much greater, do you have any idea? Is it 52 or is it 99 or is it?
It wasn't 99.
No, I'm sure that it would state it.
It was,
You know,
it was
yes.
very, it was,
47.
it was,
It's in there.
is it in there? I didn't.
Oh.
Sure.
Don't
I think it's
recall.
in there. I think it's 47 that were
46%
I don't see.
No.
petitioners signed the document.
The,
Oh,
the
okay,
40,
that's what I saw.
46 eligible, yeah.
The
Yeah,
40
no.
Petitioner signed the document.
the 46 is in reference to the civic numbers.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But it may have been kissing 60%, but
Yeah.
if it was,
Max.
it was just that, it was quite close.
So the people that, the other 40%, they wouldn't be upset if it was,
All I can say
of course,
is
the
that
majority, so,
whatever the majority is the way to go.
yeah,
That's
Okay.
all I'll say.
all right,
Politically safe to say that way.
yeah. Well, you're the local,
All right, so we need a motion.
I so make that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Okay. Move on to 6B, which is municipal property taxation. I think this is a letter sent to us by the municipality of District of Barrington, and it's, I guess, it's been sent to Russell Walker, who's the president of the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities. CAO Muse.
Council, this is in reference to the, this is in reference to the Chamber of Commerce citing the, I guess, the unfairness around business taxation in Nova Scotia, and a request to re-examine. They cite the fact that in a lot of cases, the business tax is more than twice the amount in rate compared to residential. And they cite that there's not necessarily a huge increase in services to business versus residential. And they want to review this. The UNSM has actually responded to that, stating that it isn't as simple as the Chamber of Commerce has put it out there. I mean, in municipalities generate revenue using tax assessment, and of course, if you look to reduce the business rate, that will come at an expense to the residential rate. And so, where that was, I guess the UNSM's response was really quite cryptic in terms of, they didn't say you're right or you're wrong. They did cite the fact that there were issues with the current system. It's not a perfect system by any means, but that it was not that simply reducing the business rate was not the solution to the problem. So if the municipality wishes to chime into that discussion, it can do so by writing a letter. It could also do so by participating in Rural Caucus of the UNSM, or to bring a resolution to the UNSM conference. So there's a variety of options at your disposal, depending on what you want to do.
Okay. Councillor Surratt.
I would certainly, before I vote on this myself, I don't know what the report is, municipal property taxation, and I'd like to see that, before I go and vote, say, yes, let's vote on this. I'm not very familiar with it, and that's just my opinion. I certainly, before I go and vote on this, I'd like to see that if it was available somewhere. Too bad they didn't send them as an attachment. I could have read it, but, that's just my comment.
Warden
I
D'Entremont.
understand right what they're asking here, what this letter is asking, is that we agree with them and write to the Union of Nova Scotia municipalities to look after this, and not individual municipalities, right? That's what they're asking for here, right? They're not asking for us to make a decision on what. Actually, there's another discussion going on now about income tax. Municipalities charging tax according to the income and not properties. There's some discussion going on there now, but this is not the issue here.
Very good point. Mr. Warden, yeah.
Do we need a motion to support them to send it to UNSM, or?
I think that's what they're asking,
Yes.
if that's what we so choose.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second that.
so
That we
move,
send a letter to UNSM.
okay. So moved by Councillor Book, seconded by Warden D'Entremont.
Asking, the motion reads that, asking the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities to deal with this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the
Okay.
name of all the municipalities.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so you've all heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Okay. All right, we'll move on to 6C, lobster quotas. This is an attachment. I do believe this one was brought, or maybe brought to us by Councillor LeBlanc. Is that correct?
Did you just guess? Or?
No, I had some inside information.
Okay, yes.
So go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
As most of you probably read, the district, the municipality of Lunenburg has opposed and taken a stand against individual lobster quotas for our inshore lobster fishery. Just to be clear, I don't think there's exactly currently a threat to the inshore lobster fishery. I've had numerous conversations myself with our federal fisheries minister. Currently, there is no, he's made it well clear that currently there is no threat at this very minute, but I don't think I have to explain to everyone how detrimental it would be to our fisheries. I mean, we've all seen the way of the handline fishery, how that's gone and how it's worked for our municipalities and our economy as well as our population. So I'm not going to get too much into detail of that, but that being said, although there is no threat right now, some people are kind of probably jumping the gun, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Changes in power can occur and whatnot. I guess I'm just going to make a motion that we publicly acknowledge that we take a stand against individual lobster quotas in our inshore fishery, along with the municipality of Lunenburg.
I'll second that.
Okay, moving seconded, more discussion. Warden D'Entremont.
I think what really happened is a former fisheries minister that made a comment that maybe we should look at lobster quotas and.
Yeah.
You know,
It was taken quite seriously.
Yeah, she's not minister anymore.
No, she's not.
You know. She's a new minister now.
Not of fisheries.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
Question.
Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Okay.
What?
All right, move on to 6D, which is, let me just see here for a second. Protocole d'amitié, Belle-Île-en-Mer. That's, I think it has to do with you, Warden D'Entremont?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's an invitation.
You have the floor.
An invitation I got to attend the 10th anniversary in France of, we twinned, the 10th anniversary of the twinning of Pubnico and Belle-Île-en-Mer. I didn't make it the other time. Our MLA went, Neil LeBlanc at the time was there, and some other people from the community, Father Maurice LeBlanc, I think. And, this has been for 10 years, and they want to do something a little special for the 10th anniversary. So Alain, you've been doing some work on this. If you want to inform council of what's going on.
Sure. So knowing that 10 years ago the province of Nova Scotia was supportive financially to sending somebody from the municipality of Argyle to Belle-Île-en-Mer, I did ask the, staff from the Acadian Affairs to see if that is potentially available. And it's very likely that there would be an availability there, although we'd have to ask for it and we'd have to get official response. So I guess I didn't get thrown out of the place for asking the question, but I certainly can't guarantee that there would be funding available. But they certainly do support this kind of twinning of villages, and I'm fairly confident that we could secure some provincial funding to offset some of the costs. Now, we don't know exactly what it would cost, but we have an idea. It's a 2-day event. 2-day, correct? Am I wrong on that?
25th, it says here.
might be thinking of another trip. But certainly the invitation is there. We did get to take the trip for free 10 years ago. I expect there'll be support provincially, but it won't cover 100% likely. So really, it's council is being asked to consider whether or not it should support the warden in the invitation to go to Belle-Île in France. So the 25th of May is the date, and certainly we did go 10 years ago. I will say that. I think that's the extent of the information that I have on it.
Councillor Surratt.
Notre préfet, ferais-tu intéressé à aller à une rencontre comme ça, le 25 de mai, ferais-tu intéressé?
Oui.
Ferais-tu intéressé d'y aller?
Des démarches, parce que et j'expecte que tout va être payé. Je vais payer une partie de ma poche pour ma poche.
Ouais. Moi, vraiment, de faire une motion qu'on regarde pour avoir une bourse ou, du gouvernement provincial et Canadian Affairs et que le préfet sait, si c'est pas tout couvert, que le conseil pourra payer, si on pourra avoir un numéro, ben on n'y pas de numéro, si qu'on agree que notre préfet à la Belle-Île-en-Mer. C'est ça la motion que moi, de faire.
Okay, I guess the discussion was that Councillor Surratt asked Warden d'Entremont if he wanted to go to Belle-Île-en-Mer to represent the municipality, and the answer was yes. And then Councillor Surratt proceeded to make a motion to, I guess, seek provincial funding for the trip. Is that correct?
Yes.
And made a motion, and it was seconded by Councillor Book. Okay. Any more discussion? No?
I got a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
For
Warden d'Entremont.
For Councillor Surratt, did I understand the motion right, that the municipality would be willing to pay,
The difference,
maybe not even the difference, but part of it, or,
I would say the difference.
oh, okay. All right,
If Cathy agrees with that,
thank you.
add on to the motion.
Yeah. All right, so you've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Carried. Okay, we go on to 6E, RANE, Regional Enterprise Network and Economic Development Plan Update. 34 pages. CAO Muse.
I'm not going to go through every page. This is basically for your information. We do have a steering committee that is working this thing, this plan for Argyle. So this is for information for the whole of council. Tomorrow we have what I call a keep or drop meeting. So what that basically is the project steering committee, which consists of council and business members of the community. We'll be meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock, 9 probably till 12. I think we figured on 2-3 hours to discuss what the preliminary findings are and where Argyle ought to focus. So the list was intended to be a long list that was created by the Chrysler Group. And so the Chrysler Group, what they said was, if you were to do the long list, it would take you 1.5 to 2 people to do it. Okay, and I mean, I'm presuming over a reasonable period of time. I mean, obviously, if you had 15 years, you could do it with 0.5. But I mean, over a 5-year period, it would be 1.5 to 2 people. And so we're always, very conscious of cost around that. And we also have a lot of uncertainty around regional economic development. So we are at a crossroads. We will be looking at this list and I guess tailoring the list, which I expect will result in reducing that 1.5 to 2 to maybe 1 to 1.5. It's hard to know for sure. It depends on what the group decides, which really will focus our efforts in economic development in the community of Argyle, in the municipality of Argyle, I should say. So the purpose of attaching the 34 pages is this was the presentation that Chrysler Group presented to the steering committee. My own personal opinion, I thought they did a very good job with where we are thus far. They listened very intently to the input they got from the community, and the community was generally very positive, very thankful that Argyle did this, that council decided to do this for the municipality of Argyle. Just quickly, a couple of points. They all agree that status quo, our current condition, is not an option. So some decided that we needed to make extreme changes. Some were like only small changes. Most were in the area of you know, something a little bit durable, like something larger, but not, you know, completely blow it up, right? So significant change was needed. So we'll be working that plan tomorrow, and I expect that the list will be slightly smaller. I did appreciate the fact that the Chris Lowe Group understood our size and our financial limitations. They had our financial statements. They gathered a lot of information, and so, you know, they certainly didn't make a recommendation to spend $800,000 on economic development. I mean, they recognize that we have certain restrictions. They also recognize that we don't have a regional economic development organization at this time for Southwest Nova. So that's just a status update to the rest of council around where we are. I expect that you will see that smaller list when it gets worked over, which leads into the update on the REN. The REN, as you're aware, is the new RDA that municipalities are contemplating. I think there was a lot of depending on who you talk to in the province, there was either, I don't think anybody was jumping for joy, but I think most had some concerns and some questions around what that might look like. In REN 1, which is our region, it includes Digby County, Yarmouth County, Barrington, and Clark's Harbor. We don't have an RDA, so it wasn't about closing the old one and starting a new one. However, it did bring up some old painful memories of unpaid bills with SWASDA, so that still is hanging over any sort of new economic development that we will undertake. The municipality of Argyle will be asked officially at some point to make a decision around whether it should be a partner in REN. Right now, I can't recommend one way or another. There's still a lot of work to be done to develop what that might look like. But at our last meeting, we did talk about what it might look like. There was a lot of talk around having economic development officers that are employed by municipal units, but that they are seconded or lent to the REN for 50% of their time. Depending on which municipal units are engaged in this process, I'll use Clare as an example because they're the one who raised it. They have an economic development officer currently that and they also have an economic development plan underway for Clare. So they're very similarly set up as we are. And it's likely that they would participate in an REN if they could take that person and allocate a part of her time to a regional economic development initiative, but still have 50% working on Clare-only projects. So that seemed to spark a lot of interest amongst the group because because we're all struggling with whether we should be regional or whether we should effectively work in our own communities. So that's where we're at. And so I don't really have any, a recommendation, but I have been tasked to kind of pull together what the numbers might look like. So so there's another meeting set, I believe it's next week, to discuss that further.
Councillor Surratt.
I think the CEO has answered. The question I had was a municipal approach and a regional approach, and you've certainly answered, what my question was. Thank you.
Okay. That wraps up 6E, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to 6F, which is notice of surplus property, West Pubnico, Nova Scotia Liquor Commission property. In West Pubnico, I guess the liquor store moved to the co-op, so there's a building, a surplus building, and I guess being a municipality and it being provincial, I guess we were kind of next in line to get the building if we wanted it. CA Muse, do you have any update?
I did not receive any information. I responded to the province as stating that we might be interested in the property, but we'd like to get additional information. What's the value? What's the, basic information. We've not yet received a response. Of course, I only sent that on Friday after getting the email on Thursday. So really, there's nothing to decide here unless council wishes to discuss potential uses at this time. Certainly up to you, but I don't have anything other than to say it might be a use. There might be a use for it municipally or even from a business perspective. I know there's a couple of suggestions that were thrown around in terms of municipal services. We do have a library in Pubnico Head, and this may or may not be a suitable building for that. So there's and really that's just been thrown around. It's nothing official by any means. It has business capacity, having the larger bay doors for bringing in the liquor. Obviously, it's set up for potential business opportunities as well.
I think at this time it's probably premature to discuss too much because we don't know if if it's, will end up in our hands or not. But I guess it's a good update, so people and council are know what's going on, so.
Too many people that quit drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We'll move on. On that note, we'll move on to the next one, which is 6G, special election date and preliminary voting list approval date. I guess, CEO Muse, since you were appointed the returning officer, we will give it to you.
As returning officer, I have attached the special election calendar. And it says on the top, option 2, enumeration. You have decided to do enumeration. I can say that the enumeration for SAR is complete. I know Belleville is probably 90%, and Quinnen, I'm not sure, but it's very, very close to, it's over 50%, I would say, depending on how they did today, if they went out. So those lists will be basically completed this week. I'd be comfortable recommending to council that it could approve a preliminary list today. You don't have a list in front of you. That's typically not what you see. It's basically to approve the preliminary list. It's not intended that you look on line by line every name, but the enumeration's going very well, and we have seen some changes, deletions, etc. So any sort of major change that happens after the enumeration is complete, it would be considered a revision to the preliminary list. So I guess my first recommendation would be that today you can approve the preliminary list, and you can also set the dates for the special election now that the appeal period has passed. I attached the calendar for your review. What we're suggesting is no different than what we have been suggesting, is that April 27th be the election day, special election, ordinary polling day. E-voting would begin on April 19th and would still run for the week. The nomination day would be the Easter Tuesday, that even exists, April 2nd. So the nominations would open on March 22nd. It's a longer nomination period because of the holiday. So we would publish the revision periods and the nomination periods in accordance with what you see in the calendar. But the major dates, I guess we would require council to approve a special election, to engage in a special election, and I would recommend that the dates listed in the calendar be the dates that you approve.
Okay. Okay, first discussion, Lucien Leblanc.
I was just going to make the motion that we approve the special election date and preliminary voting list.
Okay, I guess Councillor Book beat you to it, but Councillor Muse.
I'm just going to bring up a point of the nomination day. Is that with Easter falling there, is that going to be a problem? Now I see you've backed up the nomination, the start of nomination, to include the 5 days that you need or the 6 days that you need, right? And the reason I'm bringing it up, to me, it doesn't matter. But I've had a call. I've had a call with that comment that with the nomination on going, with this going through Easter, is that going to create problems? And that perhaps the 9th would be a better nomination day. It would move everything 1 week. Again, I'm bringing it up because I did receive a call from a member from a person from the public requesting me to bring this up to see if we felt that we shouldn't go after Easter in order to make it more. Now, looking at the dates, if we did go, nomination would have to start in that week before Easter anyway, in order to give enough time, right? Enough days prior to nomination day. You need so many days, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we would still fall in the Easter weekend if we did that, because you would have to start your nomination probably on the 27th if you did that. You know, can you follow what I'm saying? Anyway, I brought it up. I brought it up because I was asked to bring it up. Okay?
I think
Now,
Deputy.
whether that makes a difference to the rest of the councillors or whatever, but there is a motion up there to approve this. And, yeah.
Councillor Surratt?
As far as I'm concerned, looking at what our CEO has brought us to us, it's fine. Anybody that wants to run in District 5, certainly, I'm sure that they'll have made up their mind before that date. There's plenty of time. Easter Monday is not a holiday. It's, basically everybody goes back to work, except maybe school teachers and some government people. But whoever wants to run, sure, certainly has plenty of time. And I think you've only had one call from one person. If it was a call from maybe 15 or 20 people, I think that would be a great thing. But I think this looks okay as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Lucien LeBlanc, maybe. Lucien, did you have any calls? No, since you're taking care, okay.
Okay, Deputy Chris Rohan.
Just to clarify for Councillor Muse's comments on the nomination day, if we were to back up the nomination day to April 9th by a week, the nominations would open April 2nd, which would be after Easter, because you need 5 business days prior to nomination day to open the nominations. So that would, I guess, take out the issue of having it through Easter weekend or through the Easter holiday. And my second point that I would like to make, if we could just make the motions separate so that we'd have the date of the preliminary list approval and the date of the special election, that would be preferred. Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay.
Read the motion again.
Councillor Muse?
I'm-
Sorry, CA Muse?
I think with the special election, there are rules around when the nomination day needs to be. And I believe the rules are the first Tuesday of the month before the election. I can't recall. I'm just trying to find that information for you. So perhaps you can deal with the motion on the preliminary list. And while you're dealing with that motion, maybe I'll find the answer in that period of time, because there might be a very good reason why the second needs to be the second. So let me just double check that.
I think Mr. Frozen may have some information for us.
Just to help out CEO Muse a little bit, it has to be the 4th Tuesday before ordinary polling day, nominations day.
All right.
So that's, if you look right now, that the 4th Tuesday before ordinary polling day is the April 2nd, which would be nomination day. So if you back it up to April 9th, the election ordinary polling day would have to be May 4th.
That's correct. Thank you.
Question on the motion.
Okay, and
It hasn't been seconded.
Hasn't been?
No.
So what is the
I thought
motion?
Kathy-
What is the motion that you want here?
we have 2 motions that we have to take care of. One is the approval of the preliminary list, okay? And then another motion to authorize a special election for District 5 with ordinary polling day being April 27, 2013, and nomination day being April 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes, if the dates are the wish of council, then those dates are correct.
Yeah,
If
so
they're
there's two
different dates,
motions. So
obviously.
which one did you want to make?
Number one.
Okay. So it's a motion to approve the preliminary list, and we need a seconder.
Second,
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. All those in favor?
aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Next one we have to make is to authorize a special election for District 5. Nomination date being April 2nd, 2013, and with the ordinary polling day being April 27th, 2013.
I so move.
Okay, moved by Warden D'Entremont, seconded by Councillor Surratt. You've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Okay. Motion carried. All right, does that clean that up?
That's it.
All right. Move on to 6H, Bon Temps Funding Allocation. So Bon Temps is the new tourism group that's been formed here in the municipality after the best practice mission to the Magdalen Islands. I guess the municipality had received $5,000 as the applicant from ACOA as part of the overall funding, and there is some of that money that's left. I don't know exactly. I think there's $3,159.99 remaining from the original, and I guess the Bon Temps group is asking for the municipality to, I guess, move that money over to them. Is that correct, CA Muse?
That's been discussed at their meetings. It's been brought up by the community development officer. Absolutely. So we did utilize a portion of it to reduce their costs of travel, but there still remains an amount. And so your options are to keep it in your accounts and decide how to utilize it in the future, or if you're satisfied that this group represents the interests. Obviously, the surplus was always earmarked to be used for tourism related expenditures. So your choices are to keep or grant.
Councillor Surratt.
Whereas I believe this Bon Temps Society is certainly working hard to move in the proper direction for tourism in Argyle. I think they're really working very hard. I've heard some good comments. I would certainly like to make the motion that the $3,159.99 be turned over to the society,
Okay.
to the Bon Temps Society.
Okay, it's been, you heard the motion, it's been seconded.
Question?
Question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Okay, carried. All right, move on to 6I, which is another road name correction request, and I think that one was brought up by Councillor LeBlanc, am I correct?
That is correct.
Go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
Oh my God. Obviously, you see here in the picture, the current road name is Chemin de Petit Jacquard. This isn't actually a road name change per se. For the past, who knows how many years, this road name has been Le Petit Chemin des Jacquards. In an English translation, currently the way the sign states is that the jacquards of this road are small.
Yeah.
The original meaning, of course, was that the road itself is small and not the jacquards of this road. This is a sub-road off of the Jacquard Road. That's why it's smaller in comparison to the Jacquard Road. I've tried to talk to DOT to get it changed. The residents of this road, especially the Jacquards of this road, are upset with the current sign. So I'd like to make a motion that the municipality sends a letter to the appropriate person to have the sign rechanged. There was actually an argument, sorry, it's a motion. I'd make a motion to rechange the road name to Petit Chemin des Jacquards.
Okay.
And also mention to spell Japar the right way too.
Yes, the Q is not a capital normally in Jafar.
Never noticed.
At least not the Jafars I know don't spell it that way.
Okay.
No.
All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. All right. Move on to number 7, correspondence and for information. 7A, Government of Nova Scotia, energy rates, an attachment with 8 pages.
Is that what I brought tonight here,
Yeah.
basically?
Yeah, yes, yeah. You had a meeting. Yeah.
I was at a presentation this morning at the Grand, yeah.
Can you fill us in a little bit, Warden D'Entremont?
Well, yes, it was, one of the, Minister Belle-Île was there, and the Deputy Minister of Energy, and another MLA from Hammonds Plains. Their information session on what they're doing and what their plans are and this and that, and what the benefits of the Muskrat Falls. And they've been going around the province doing that and convince the people that it's the right thing. And, you know, they have a contract for another 30 years or so. Some of us may not be around, but I think they're looking at the future, you know. And there's a lot of information there also about comparing. Well, they use the Pubnico Point wind farm, which used to be more expensive than generating power with coal when it was first, the contract was first signed, but now it's relatively the same because the coal has gone up so much that,
In 7 years?
I think in 7 years or so, I think it may be a little cheaper now than what they're paying for coal, so. And, you know, there's a lot of information there if you want to.
Okay.
Look, thank you.
Good, thank you, Warden D'Entremont. Okay, so everybody's got some information there, okay? Next one, 7B, Waste Check Enforcement Officer Report.
Okay.
So this is also for information, just basically showing us some of the dates. Illegal dumping is still going on in our municipality, unfortunately, but they are cleaning up and sometimes finding the people, sometimes they aren't. But anyway, so you've got the report and
They got the Black Pond Road. They said just going up to my camp there, just always on that corner. But they've nailed one person.
Good.
Yeah.
okay. Anybody else? No?
Mr. Chair, could I have
Go ahead.
a moment on another issue that I should have added to the agenda? I was talking this afternoon to Mayor Mood, Pam Mood, and she's been approached by, she's on the steering committee actually for the spring workshop, UNSN spring workshop in Yarmouth. What we've done in the past is we've had regional dinners where people had the choice to go out, you know, and this and that, either Clare or Pubnico or you know, and people enjoyed that. And what they're talking about this time is maybe having something at the Mariner Center and maybe having lobsters out of the shell. And she asked me if I would be willing to help with the cooking, her and I and Murray Goodwin and Ronnie LeBlanc, and you know, because she asked somebody for a price what it would cost, and they had estimated about $5,000. She said we're not going to pay that much. So she said if we can buy lobsters for $1,000 or whatever, and we could do it a lot cheaper than that. And she was wondering, you know, and she has to respond to this by the 8th of March, and that would be before our next meeting. And she said, what do you think council would say? Well, I said, it's a lot cheaper than if the convention was in Halifax and we'd have to pay lodging and paying mileage and all that stuff, so it's not a big expense. It could be $1,000 or even less or something like that. So I said, well, get some information and we'll see what, you know, and tell them we're gonna do it. We'll get the money somewhere. I mean, it's not a lot of money. It'd be cheaper for us than what we normally pay, you know, to send 2 people even to the convention, so. Anyway, we can't really make a decision on that. I don't have any numbers. And she didn't have the numbers yet.
Okay, so that's for information?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Sorry about that.
Yeah, all right. Move on to number 8, funding request, District Committee Grant, La Cabane, and that's one that I brought up for tonight. I even put for night, yeah. The Cabane, which is the Girl Guide Camp in West Pubnico in Lower West, is looking for a community district grant for District 9 for $500 to pay to fix the road and the grounds. They have, you know, a driveway and some grounds there where they can pitch tents and stuff, so I make that a motion. I guess I can't make that a motion, sorry.
Motion for you.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried?
I don't know if Marcia sent out to all councillors, but she sent me an email this week to tell me what I had left. Allocation I had left. Some don't have any left, it's all used up. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you
okay.
do, you have till March 31st. Is that correct, CEO Muse?
You don't have to spend it, eh?
No, if you choose to spend it, you have until 31st of March, and then
Yeah.
the clock starts again. However, we don't know how much that's going to be until council approves.
That's right.
And does it carry over?
No.
No, it would be,
If you don't have any requests, you don't give it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, number 9, notice of motion. Any notice of motion? Having heard none, we move to number 10, question period. Any questions from the media? From Malcolm Madden, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, question about the boundaries issue. Less than a year ago, the last council discussed the boundaries issue. Councillor Surratt, you were against reducing councillors, but tonight you're so you made the motion to go for it. What's so changed so much in such a short period of time?
Just to answer you that question, if you remember when you were on council at that time, when we went to vote for the boundary change and that, there was a motion on the floor to change it from 9 councillors to 5. So I was not against lowering the number, I was against changing it from 9 to 5. Was it 7? Was it 6? Was it 2? It was all of a sudden asked by our CAO to bring something to the table which was rushed, that I thought was rushed very quickly. And I said, no, this is too quick. We need more discussion from council and the councillors around the table. And this is why that I've done this tonight. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Surratt. Any more questions? No? There you go.
Second.
Okay,
I'm not spinning my chair.
adjournment.
Yeah.